Okay, this is part two to my progress videos covering my imagining Bloodborne as an animated series project. And getting right into this painting right here, this is a shot of Lady Maria's clock tower. And this is actually the first shot that I painted in the current 3.0, as I mentioned last time, in my current vision slash version of this project. And I want to go deeper into one of the main inspirations that isn't Dishonored behind this whole series, and something that the artists who work on that project are really able to achieve well, and that I think I did a pretty good job doing it in this project. And that is, I mentioned them last time, but in the World of Warcraft shorts, I don't know what their series is called, but this one particularly was like Jaina Proudmoore, like the Warbringers video or something like that. It's like I want to say four, maybe 3.5 minutes long or something to that effect. And I think this came out, I want to say close to 6 years ago now. It's got to be something like that. I probably started really getting into painting a year before this. Yeah, I'd say about a year before this video came out. Sorry, let's say 7 years, and this is 6 years, or again around there. Maybe it's a little less. But the second I watched this video, I remember watching this video, and I think it was the color palette. I think it was some of the shots, like this one right here with like the mast in the water. But instantly, this was the first time I can picture and imagine. I can take my love of games like Dishonored and their art. I'm finally learning how to paint a little bit. I can imagine doing a Bloodborne type video like this, like a little 3 minute video with this beautiful art in a sort of painterly style, and tell a story in the Bloodborne universe. And I've watched all of the World of Warcraft videos they've done. They have ones for like for a bunch of different orcs. They have one with Uther and Arthas. They have one with Illidan. I don't know. Maybe like they have like 12 or 14. I want to say total. Maybe even more. But I've watched all of those ever since watching this one. I don't think I'd watched them before that. Again, I played a lot of WoW, but my older brother and I played WoW, but with like a constant soundtrack going on. It was like The Offspring, or soundtrack, a playlist with a bunch of music like The Offspring and Green Day and Eminem. And basically, we didn't pay. My point is, we didn't pay attention to the lore or to the music, so I had no reason to know that these videos existed or pay attention to them. So, also, I wanted to say, I noticed that last time. Okay, I'm cutting myself off, which is going to take longer. But I noticed in the first video, I took like half an hour to get all my points across. And usually, I don't think I have any videos with a written script on this channel, but I've made a lot of YouTube videos in the past, and I always work with a script because I know that I ramble and I take too long. And yeah, the part one of this was like half an hour. So I tried to, especially for the breakdown of the paintings and things, I tried to streamline the whole thing and kind of strip it down to just what's relevant to what I wanted to talk about, so it goes a little faster. Anyway, with that intermission over, with that interruption. Okay, so yeah, I absolutely love these videos. If any of the artists from that, or Fortiche or Arcane, want to talk to me, and anyone sees this, I would love to. But yeah, this video in particular, I watched it. I went and watched all the other videos, and instantly I thought, like, yeah, I can picture this sort of Bloodborne project. Like, it started to formulate in my mind. And since then, I've given each of those videos, countless views. I'll just go back and rewatch them all the time for entertainment, when I'm not being able to when I need ideas and things like that. And you'll notice right away, hey, look, highlighted edges. If you've watched the first video, my first video, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you got highlighted edges, that might not be the right word, but that's what I'm gonna refer to it as. But anyway, same thing. They go for a very monochromatic look. They've got this almost sickly green color that I felt like was perfect for the hunter's nightmare. And then also a little bluish color, which also really fits with the beach. I think with the outside area with Kos and the fishing hamlet. And something I want to highlight that this trailer does really well. This artist, the artists who paint these backgrounds do really well, as well as this screenshot I took of Dishonored 2, actually, is they don't, there's not, I guess the paintings are quite economical, is the best way to put it. They do not waste a lot of time rendering unnecessary detail. So you'll have maybe a little more detail up front, a little more render on something in the foreground, and in the background is just a few value shifts, maybe even just basically just a single brushstroke of, there's not a lot of variation. There might be a little bit of variation to indicate shadow with lines down here or railings right here. And then even coming forward, you're breaking the silhouette of this long shape here. But for the most part, there's not a lot of detail added. But in terms of the shot overall, I mean, it's a beautiful shot, like composition wise, and you wouldn't think that, you wouldn't call the person lazy who rendered this. They're just very economical with their choice of what they want to render. This dock is another great shot. The barrel here is pretty decently rendered. Same as the wood. There's a little more texture and things like that going on. And then Jaina herself is, I mean, just a silhouette, just a gray silhouette. These rocks are silhouette. Maybe they aren't rocks, but that's what's great. It doesn't really matter. You just look at stuff around it and your mind fills in the blank. And I think that's the mark of a trained painter is you can put in all the detail in the world, but you also know when to just let the mind fill in the blank. Like we know this mast is made of wood. You don't have to render it the same level as you did here. You can tell that it's a ship mast. Same thing here, rendering in the foreground. Right, detail in the midground. And then, I mean, if you really like examined and stared at this still for a long time, it's like that's just a few like marks, like what the heck is even going on here? But instantly your mind fills in the gaps. Like, oh, this is a shipwreck area. Like all these are just wrecked ships. Actually, even in the foreground, I mean, look at how undefined this mast is, right? It is just, it's just a few strokes here. Who knows what that is? Maybe it's a broken piece of wood, something like that. But when you're just going through the video and in the context of the whole thing, even just looking at the image, actually, it all works so beautifully well, and it's very efficient. And so with this painting, which again is the first one that I actually did in this whole series, you'll notice that I've got my detail here on the statues, detail on the railing, right? A little bit of texture here, a little bit more rendering, or a little bit less rendering in the midground, but you can still see there's still rendering here. Still, I'm trying to make sure to have like maybe a cooler bounce light, the light coming from the light rays coming down this way. But for the most part, you still got a little detail here. And then in the background, you'll notice I've got some areas of detail. You can see the suggestion of a railing here, of these rooms that house like these patients that Maria tends to. But overall, this area, and it's funny, you'd think all the detail I put in is what I'm most proud of, but actually this area right here is my absolute favorite because pretty early on, put down a few brush strokes back here, and I actually covered it with a railing, and I was gonna go into a lot more detail with the sort of back area over here. And again, I this was like a little too unfinished, so I emphasized the detail there, but I also pushed it back. I tried to really blend it with the background. But you'll notice that I actually sort of erased away this part, and the strokes that I had, just these massive, what sort of undefined, chaotic, kind of messy brush strokes back here, just to fill in the general color and value of how I wanted the background to be. I just left it there. And that's really all you need when you're looking at this image. again, especially in what's going to be the context of my final video, this will only be up, this will only be on screen for, you know, a certain amount, you know, maybe 5-10 seconds. And your mind sees the detail here. It sees here, it sees even the little chips, you know, all little small details here. It sees the railing here and it goes, okay, like I see what's going on. I know what's going on. And then the light rays I used, instead of using like a generic like Procreate light ray brush, I actually tried to use something a little more opaque, with a little harder lines actually. A little more defined lines. I just kind of like this stylistically. But I mean, nothing, there's nothing here. I started to, earlier on, I started to render and do stuff and I realized, hey, I can just make that all one color, and then, you know, being very economical, and I can just leave this beautiful mess of a few brush strokes back here. And it's one of my favorite paintings I've done in the whole series so far. And additionally, it's just one of my favorite executions of the painting so far, because I'm trying to get to this point where I can just, hey, there's not a lot going on here, you know, this, you know, we just got a few mess of brush strokes, but your brain gets it. You know, I'm trying to get to the point where I can put enough detail in here that I can masterfully kind of whatever isn't extremely important in the composition, but it still needs to be there. You know, it still frames it nicely, because that's the other thing. Whenever you're painting, you need areas of rest for your eyes and you need areas of high detail. But if everything is rendered in extreme, this isn't even extreme detail, but if everything's rendered in the same level of detail, that's not how we view things in real life. Our eyes choose to focus on something, and the things in the background or the midground or whatever isn't the focal point. We're going to kind of just, it's not going to be as sharp, right? It's going to be a little more blurred. And that's what you want to simulate here. It's not that it isn't important to the composition. It's very important to the composition, but it's just an area of rest. And a good, you know, the mark of a good painting, the mark of a good painter is being able to find those areas of rest and versus areas of detail. And you know, if you can execute at a high level, I think you can masterfully just leave entire areas to a few strokes and move on. And that's what I was trying to do here. And if we want to look at the other painting that I did, this is one of Master Willem sitting in his chair. I don't want to give the context because I don't want to spoil what exactly I'm doing here. But you'll kind of see the same thing here, actually, is I have the back of his chair is rendered. I have him holding his scepter is rendered. You can see the detail of the cloth. You can see even in his hat a bit, and especially on the wood and things like that. And you can start to see a bit of stone in front of him, but then the rest of the room that he's in is mostly black. I have a single stroke here and here, maybe to indicate maybe, you know, there's more of this stonework going on. Who knows? It's not important. It's important to be there, that it's not just a total black void. Same thing with this stonework, actually. As you can see, I kind of tried to blend it as it goes up, because we've got a light source somewhere off to the left, right? Light source coming somewhere from the left. And you're not really sure exactly what it is, but you can see it's pretty warm. And it's got the back of the chair lit up, and then it's got the lower section of this brickwork and this column right in front of him lit up. But as it gets higher, it's obviously going to fade a bit. And so I tried to not totally, you know, I still have the paintings there, but to blend it with this void back here. It's all about executing it in a subtle way. And again, when you're just viewing this quickly, you don't even think about these things, but these are things that I'm thinking about as I'm making these paintings. And a few other things of note, maybe it's easier to see in this one, but I'm trying to add cracks and things like that, give a little more character, add a little highlight area to the crack as well. I'm trying to give a little more character to the stones, because stones can be pretty basic sometimes. Highlighting the edges, but making them a bit more interesting. Even on the wood, you'll see that if there's cracks and things like that, I'll try and highlight the edges of the wood. If you came into this video and haven't seen the first video, I recommend watching that, because that's all you'll hear for 30 minutes. But then same thing even along these wood blocks, right? Just giving everything a bit more character, having a warmer side and a cooler side. Same thing with this pattern up here.